Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Kol Haloyam, La Adonai Yahweh, Bashem Shamalak Yahushai, Bashem Rakakadash, double honor to the apostles and the elders, great millstone, peace, citations, hope for elect, Habba Yashar, Malak Dawadah, House of King David, into the fusion of faces that look like they see the nation, but identity goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the royally chosen Selah, Shalom. Alright, title of this video is going to be the pagan origins of Dia de los Muertos. And as you know, this is a Mexican version of Halloween. And it starts at November 1st and it ends at like November 2nd, which will be today. Because it's already 11:04 and I might post this video, tonight. So it's going to show up as November 3rd that I posted it. So, depending on the time I finish. But, this is basically, a Mexican version of Halloween, as I just stated a couple seconds ago. And it says the origins and practices of Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, or Saints' Day, which is like Day of the Dead. It says this is a new blog series we're doing on religious and cultural holidays, celebrations that are commonly celebrated in Massachusetts to help create awareness for these traditions, the origins. If there is a particular religion or celebration you or someone you know participates in that doesn't appear on this list, let us know by leaving a comment on this post. Alright, let me just get to the important part. So basically, what you call it? This is like let me see. October 31st to November 1st, 2018. Well, this year it was, November 1st and November 2nd. So I guess certain years it change the dates. Because a Samhain, pronounced So-in, as is a Samhain? No. Pronounced So-in. So-in is a Wiccan holiday. It is one of their 8 major holidays or sabbats or whatever. Although there are different types of Wicca, all Wiccans share the common beliefs. They love and respect nature and try to live in harmony with the earth. One of their main beliefs is harm none. This includes animals, humans, and nature. And this is part of witchcraft, by the way, just if y'all don't know, Wiccan, that shit, Samhain is observed from sunset on October 31st to sunset on November 1st. It is a celebration that is the origin of Halloween. Samhain was first observed by Celtic pagans. Samhain, it said his name is supposed to be pronounced as So-in. Samhain marked the Celtic New Year, the end of the summer, and the end of the harvest season. It is also signaled the beginning of winter, which they associated with death. Yeah, because usually like winter, like all forms of life will die. So that's why, you will see that, that's why you will see, most of these people worship, starting with the heathens, because they're the ones that did it, and our people follow along with them, worshiping, gods of death and all this other shit. And literally the God in the Bible is contrary to all of that, even though he does control people's life and death. The Most High is a father of the living. It tells you that in scriptures. So for you to do all these things that's on the left-hand side, the Most High is not with it. These heathens, let them do it. But our people should not be associated with these things. And this is what Issachar is down into, That's the reason why the Northern Kingdom got their ass kicked in Isaiah the 10th chapter, because they were doing these type of things. And it says, Samhain's marked the Celtic New Year, the end of the summer, and the end of the harvest season. It also signaled the beginning of the winter, which is associated with death. Okay, we just read that. On this day, the Celts believed the veil between the living and the dead was especially thin. This allowed spirits of the dead to visit the living. So they're just basically, spirits of the dead. They're basically just fucking around with demons because, you wouldn't be surprised to hear, like when they're doing these things, like if they hear of a ghost story or whatever, that's mostly a demon just messing with them. thinking that they could contact the dead, talk to the dead. They're dealing with forms of witchcraft. That's necromancy, you know. And what you call it? And the Heavenly Father said, when you die, you go in the spirit world. I made videos about the spirit world. If you look into my video sections, I made it, a couple months ago. And then I made one about reincarnation. Spirits get reincarnated, through the third or fourth generation. And what you call it? They rest in the spirit world. So you come back as your, either your great grandchild or your grandchild, or maybe even your great great grandchild or something like that, to that effect. So what you call it? And I wouldn't be surprised. That's probably the reason why they said what you call it? Because even though Yahweh was born in the spring, New Year was in the spring. I don't know why the fuck they make the New Year in the winter. And it's like they make the Yahweh, they claim that, says about Jesus Christ, which they ignorantly call, Jesus Christ. They claim Yahweh Shai like was born in the winter. And that's not true. That's why we say Jesus Christ is associated with a pagan god. He's based on the so-called, white man, Caesar Borgia, or you call him Serapis Christus, Jesus Christ. But, Yahweh Shai, we know, they try to, they just basically try to make a god that's, for their comfort. And that's why they, these heathens do these type of things. But let's go on with the story. The meaning, sowing remains the same today. There are many rituals associated with sowing today. These include dancing, feasting, taking nature walks, and building altars to honor their ancestors. Yeah, and it says there are many parts to the altars we can build to symbolize the end of the harvest. They include apples, pumpkins, or other fall crops to represent the spirits of the dead. Skulls or skeletons are placed on the altar. Photos of deceased family members are also added. Some weekends bake loaves of special salmon, sowing bread for the altar to feed visiting spirits. So, and this is like just really satanic that they're doing these type of things, And I don't know if I don't know if these are the same people that that take the dead bodies out of the I don't know, because there was some type of, if I could find it, because there was some type of I'll make a video on it, but there was some type of people that will take the dead bodies out of the caskets and they will celebrate it on a day, and they'll put it in suits and ties, and that's just completely satanic. And I saw on this video that was famous for the top list of 25, like, I think it was showing like country, rituals and their their religions and stuff like that. Their high holy days, so to say, which is full of wickedness. Ain't nothing holy about it. So I guess that's the left-hand side perspective of being holy in the most evil way possible, in the Most High's eyes. So it says some weekend families cast a circle and think of their dead, deceased loved ones as a part of the ritual. They will share stories of their ancestors. Some families choose to visit the cemetery to honor their family members instead. To learn more about Samhain Wicca, you can check out these items. So it says Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead as it translates in English, began in central and southern Mexico thousands of years ago. At that time, mourning the dead was seen as disrespectful. Instead of grieving, it was more important to keep the memory of those who have passed live. Those who celebrate the holiday believe that at midnight on October 31st, the souls of the deceased children come down from heaven and reunite with their families on November 1st. In the Roman Catholic tradition, November 1st is also Saints' Day, All Saints' Day, which is Halloween or something like that. So they believe the souls of the deceased, all adults, come to visit on the November 2nd, which is also known as All Souls Day in Catholic religion. So you see how they tie Catholicism with Christianity? Same shit Constantine did, try to tie in the the truth that the Israelites was following after. They were trying to turn their customs into like saying that you could keep your customs into a pagan, religion and stuff like that, And that's not how the Most High said. You can't take the cup of devils and, serve the Most High. No. It's either you have one master or the other. The festivities surrounding Dia de los Muertos are filled with calaveras, skulls, and calacacs, which is skeletons. Celebrators wear colorful makeup and costumes, hold parades and parties, sing and dance, and make offerings to lost loved ones. People also create altars in honor of loved ones who have passed. They are decorated with pictures, flowers, candles to deceased loved ones, favorite food, and pan de muerto, bread of the dead. So you see, and this is the same thing they would, pretty much same thing our people did to worship the to follow after Mother's Day, how they bake cakes for the queens of heaven and all this other shit. They would make decorations and pastries. This is the same shit that our people did, and this is what Jeremiah was going into. He made, and get out those scriptures very soon. It says, despite the painted faces, costumes, skulls, and skeletons, it is important to note that this holiday is not a Mexican version of Halloween. Dia de los Muertos is not intended to be a spooky holiday like Halloween. Halloween is dark and scary, and Day of the Dead is a bright and colorful celebration of life. I'm like, what the fuck? They're both the same shit. How the fuck they saying that? That's coming from Esau, I wouldn't be surprised if an Edomite made this article or probably a bugged out Jake make this article, because only someone that's bugged out could say something like this. They're both associated with fucking witchcraft. So it says both holidays share the theme of death, but the point of Dia de los Muertos is to celebrate the memory of those who have died. You're not supposed to celebrate the dead. November 1st, 2018, All Saints Day. On 1st of November, Western Christian churchgoers will celebrate All Saints Day. This day is known also as All Hallows Day, Hallowmas, or the Feast of All Saints. Eastern Christians celebrate this holiday on the first Sunday after the Pentecost. This holiday is also a holy day of obligation in Catholicism. This means Catholics are required to attend Mass that day. At the name suggests the holiday honors all the saints of church. On this day, celebrators gather in prayer and worship. Tombstones decorated for All Saints Day. The exact origins of All Saints Day is uncertain. However, the November 1st celebration of the holiday can be traced to the 8th century when Pope Gregory ill reigned, 731 to 741. He built a special chapel in Rome dedicated to the memory of all the saints on November 1st. Then Pope Gregory IV and Emperor Louis the Pious extended the November 1st Feast of All Saints to the Holy Roman Empire in the 9th century. From there, it spread throughout Europe. The Christian festival of All Saints Day comes from a belief that there is a spiritual connection between those in heaven and on earth. In the Catholic tradition, the holiday honors all those who have passed on to the kingdom of heaven. In Methodist tradition, All Saints Day is about giving God earnest gratitude for the lives and deaths of his saints and remembering all of them. Additionally, select individuals from Christian history are celebrated. Such figures are the Peter the Apostle and Charles Wesley. Those who have personally guided one's faith in Jesus, such as one's relative or friend, are also celebrated. The holiday has slightly different meanings to different worshippers. However, they are united in that they are renewing and reaffirming their faith by celebrating All Saints Day. In the scriptures, how I think it was in Romans, the 10th chapter, Bible said, how they have a zeal of Yahweh, but not according to knowledge. Yeah, that's a scary zeal to have. They have a passion to be spiritual, but they're doing it in the wrong cases, man. This is really just evil. Another article to crunch through this quickly. It says the Day of the Dead. Look at these people. Looks sick. Dressing up as skeletons. It says the Day of the Dead from Aztec goddess worships a modern Mexican celebration. Day of the Dead might sound like a solemn affair, but Mexico's famous holiday is actually a lively commemoration of the departed. The nationwide festivities, which include a massive parade in Mexico City, typically begin in the night of October 31st with families sitting vigil at a gravesite. Mexican traditions hold that on November 1st and November 2nd, dead awaken to reconnect and celebrate with their living family and friends. When is this article created? Oh, October 28, 2019 is updated on the 30th of 2019. All right. Mexican, the nation. Wait, I already said that. Given the timing, it may be tempting to equate Day of the Dead with Halloween, a ghost-themed U.S. holiday, but the two holidays express fundamentally different beliefs. While Halloween has its origin in pagan and Christian traditions, Day of the Dead has indigenous roots as a celebration of the Aztec goddess of death. Through the spirit, we believe the Aztecs were the that was they were part of another kingdom. And it says the Mictec. I don't know how to pronounce this name. Mictecahuatl, some shit like that. I don't know. Goddess of death. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Let me see. Yeah. It's hard pronouncing that name. I don't know. So let's just go on this. Day of the Dead can be traced back to the native people of central and southern Mexico, the regions where I conduct my archaeological research. When the Spanish arrived in central Mexico 500 years ago, the region had millions of indigenous inhabitants. The conquistadors largely characterized them as Aztecs because at the time they were united under the expansive Aztec Empire. According to colonial periods records, the Aztec Empire was formed in AD 1427, only about a century before the arrival of the Spanish. But the celebration the Mexicans now all call Dia de los Muertos almost certainly existed many centuries earlier, perhaps originating with the Toltec people of central Mexico. And that's the reason why the conquistadors, tells you right here, in any case, by the time the Spanish conquistadors invaded in 1519, the Aztecs recognized a wide pantheon of gods, which included a goddess of death in the underworld named Mictecahuatl. I don't know how the fuck to pronounce that name. Mictlantecuhtli. Mictlantecuhtli. Yeah, that's the god of death, the lord of the land of the dead. In other words. Let me see. So, where was he at? Yeah, she was celebrated throughout the entire 9-month of Aztec calendar, a 20-day month that corresponded roughly to late July, early August. And this is the reason why the another kingdom got their ass kicked, by the conquistadors, because they were doing these type of things. And it says the Mictlantecuhtli, or Aztec mythology tells that this false god was sacrificed as a baby and magically grew to adulthood in underworld, where she married with her husband. She presided over the underworld, and who was often depicted with flayed skin and gaping skeletal jaw, was linked to both death and resurrection, according to one myth. Mictecahuatl and her husband collected bones so that they might be returned to the land of the living and restored by the gods. The Aztecs appeased these fearsome underworld gods by burying their dead with food and precious objects. Archaeologists and historians know the relatively little about the details of the month-long celebration of that false god, but say it likely involved burning incense, song and dance, and blood sacrifice, customary practices in many Aztec rituals. Which is the same stuff they did, worshiping other false gods, like Baal, sacrificing, blood sacrifices. And it says the Spanish invaders of Mexico were Catholic, and they worked hard to evangelize native people to stamp out lingering indigenous beliefs. They demolished religious temples, burned indigenous idols, and destroyed Aztec books. You see, that was a judgment for you fucking other kingdoms, Israelites, and for following after these false gods. Y'all were doing these type of wickedness. That's the reason why y'all went down first. You know, Southern Kingdom, I mean, it's not talking about the Southern Kingdom here, but that's the reason why in the Southern Kingdom they went down too, because eventually after, because the whole nation of Israel, we've all fell off. And it says, but indigenous people in Mexico, as across the Americas, resisted Spanish efforts to eradicate their culture. Instead, they often blended their own religions and cultural practices with those imposed on them by Spanish. Perhaps the best known symbol of the ethnic and cultural mixing that defines modern Mexico is La Virgen de Guadalupe, a uniquely Mexican Virgin Mary. Many Mexican Catholics believe that in 1531 the Virgin appeared to Juan Diego, an indigenous Mexican farmer, and in his native language, Nahuatl, told to build a shrine to her. Today, the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe to Mexico City is among the world's most visited holy sites. Day of the Dead is almost certainly a similar case of blended cultures. Spanish conquerors faced difficulty in convincing natives to give up their rituals honoring their death goddess, Mictecuatl. The compromise was to move these indigenous festivities from late July to early November to correspond with All Hallow Tide, the 3-day Christian observance of All Saints Eve, All Saints Day, and All Saints Souls Day. With this move, the holiday was nominally connected to Catholicism, but many practices and beliefs associated with the worship of the dead remained deeply indigenous. Dia de los Muertos, contemporary Day of the Dead rituals, were featured prominently in the 2017 Pixar film Coco. And there was another film too called Book of Life, that I saw, and it had something to do with that Day of the Dead shit. And I think it came out like 2018 or 2017. And it said these include homemade sugar skulls, decorated home altars, and fantastical spirit animals called alebrijes, and images of convivial calaveras skeletons enjoying the afterlife in their finest regalia. The use of Mexican marigolds to adorn altars and graves on the Day of the Dead probably has indigenous origins, called Kempasuchil. Kempasuchil by the Aztecs. The vibrant Mexican marigold grows during the fall, according to myth. The sweet smell of these flowers awaken the dead. Wow. The elaborately decorated shrines to deceased loved ones, which usually contain offerings for the dead, may also have pre-Hispanic origins. Many indigenous peoples across Mesoamerica had altars in their houses or patios. Days were used to perform household rituals, worship gods, and communicate with ancestors. The bone skulls and skeletons that are so iconic of the Day of the Dead are fundamentally indigenous too. Many Aztec gods were depicted as skeletal. Other deities wore bones and clothing or jewelry. The Aztecs, who engaged in ritual human sacrifice, even used human bones to make musical instruments. The Aztec capital city of Tenochtitlan had a large bone rack called Tezonpantli that stored thousands of human skulls. And when Aztec commoners buried deceased family members under their own houses to keep them close, Mictecuatl became the formidable guardian of their bones. That's good reason Aztecs will say to celebrate this god of the death with bread, flowers, and a killer 3-day party. Now let's see when Day of the Dead, like when it Dia de los Muertos, like when it starts. Let's see. See, it began on in the United States. It began on Sunday, November 1. It ends, pretty much today, Monday. Yeah, look at that, and they have a whole bunch of decorations, even a Barbie doll, and then they have pastries. It's completely satanic. See, and it says this, that what you call it? In Jeremiah 7, let me start with what you call it? Let's see. We start at verse 16. Therefore pray not thou for this people, neither lift up cry nor prayer for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear thee. Seest thou not what they do in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, saith the Lord? Do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, my anger and my fury shall be poured out upon this place, upon man, upon beast, upon the trees of the field, and upon the fruit of the ground, and it shall burn, and it shall not be quenched. Thus saith the Lord of the hosts, the God of Israel, put your burnt offerings unto your sacrifices, and eat flesh. And you see, and this is the stuff that got the Most High really furious, because let's go into verse 26, and it says, yet they hearken not unto me, nor incline their ear, but harden their neck. They did worse than their fathers. You see, these are the things that they did. And it says, but thou shalt say to them, this is a nation that obeyeth not the voice of the Lord their God, nor receiveth correction. Truth is perished, and is cut off from their mouth. You see? And this is the stuff that these people do, baking cakes, so basically they will make decorations of pastries, decoration, and in their altars, and decorating in their house to worship all these false gods, right? They do all this shit to just worship false gods, right? Everything is a celebration to these false gods, and they following after the ways of Babylon. They're following after the ways of their oppressors, and this is the shit that got them into captivity in their first place, So, all right, let's start off with Jeremiah 11 and verse 9. I was trying to find this, but I found it now. It says, let me see. Let me start with verse 7. It says, for I earnestly protested unto your fathers in the day that I brought them up out of the land of Egypt, even unto this day, rising early and protesting, saying, obey my voice. Yet they obeyed not, nor inclined their ear, but walked every one in the imagination of their evil heart. Therefore I will bring upon them all the words of this covenant, which I commanded them to do, but they did them not. And the Lord said unto me, a conspiracy, and I went into the etymology of conspiracy. It meant like unlawful alliance or treason. And this is what they did, against the Lord. It says, a conspiracy is found among the men of Judah and among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Verse 10, they are turned back to the iniquities of their forefathers, which refused to hear my words, and they went after other gods to serve them. And this is what they did to, trying to follow after the heathen's traditions. So it says, moving on now, it says, the house of Israel and the house of Judah have broken my covenant which I had made with their fathers. Therefore thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape, and though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them. And that's the judgment for you 2/3 in the times yet to come. It says, then shall the cities of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem go and cry unto the gods unto whom they offer incense, but they shall not save them at all in the time of their trouble. For according to the number of thy cities were thy gods, O Judah, and according to the number of the streets of Jerusalem have ye set up altars, that shameful thing, even altars to burn incense unto Baal. So, and you see, it's saying like, every fucking city, every street, corner of Jerusalem, they set up altars. They set up more altars than the streets of Jerusalem, basically, in the cities. Well, according to the number of thy cities or thy gods, meaning that as much cities as there was as many gods as y'all made. Many altars as y'all made to worship and do y'all burning y'all incense. They probably just did more wickedness than more made more false gods to the because there's so much false gods, it's like almost innumerable. Let me see, let's go into Acts 17 and let me see. And even Paul even told the Athenians at one point, like he said, what should you call it? Let me see. He said, then Paul stood in verse 22, then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription to the unknown God, in capital letters. Wow. Whom therefore ye ignorantly worship him, declare I unto you. God that Yahweh that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is the Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worship with men's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things. This is the God of the living you're worshiping. You're not worshiping no God of the dead. So scriptures tell you this is the God of the living. Let's look at that in exact phrase. Wait. See if I can find it. Let me see. Alright, whatever. See, Matthew 22 and 32, it says, you know, what do you call it? Let's see. This is what Yahushua said to this lady. It says in Matthew 22, verse 29, he says, and Yahushua answered and said unto them, Ye do err, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of Yahweh. For in the resurrection they neither marry, nor are given in marriage by as angels of Yahweh in heaven. But as touching the resurrection of the dead, have ye not read that which was spoken unto you by Yahweh, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And when the multitude heard this, they were astonished at this doctrine. So yeah, because they were surprised, because like they doing all these rituals, all these customs of, following after the ways of the deaf, following after the ways of the heathen, and they're supposed to be doing what the Heavenly Father commanded them to do, which is worshiping the following the laws of the commandments and worshiping the Father and giving praises to the Son. But they don't want to do this. So you see, even in Mark 12 and 27, he said, He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. Ye do greatly err. So, and what you call it, and it shows you that Yahushua did told one of his men, let me see. He did say this to one of his disciples. He said, Yahushua said unto him, Let the dead bury the dead, but thou go and preach the kingdom of Yahweh. Because one of his disciples wanted to go bury his father, and Yahushua was like, he didn't care about that. He's like, you're not my disciple if you go and want to do what the hell you want to do. Yahushua was straightforward. He's like, I don't give a damn about that. You go, you can't be your disciple. You can't be his disciple. He also said, if you don't, if you don't disregard your family and for the truth, meaning, well, he said hate, but meaning disregard. So, because, eventually he's going to, that disciple's going to see his father in the kingdom of heaven, And this is the manliest thing that you could ever be in this truth, because a lot of people, they will be willing to do, things like following the ways of the deaf because they're, they don't have that understanding. They go with their emotions rather than going with their logic. And when you go with your logic in this truth, you find that eventually through the spirit, that, logic is more powerful than emotions. And you realize that this truth, with this wisdom, this enhances your IQ and enhances your logic, and you won't be doing things that will bug you out. You see, these people doing all these things, worshiping gods of the dead, worshiping all these false idols. These people are just blinded by, lying spirits. They're blinded. And they're doing things that's ignorantly leading them away from the Heavenly Father and leaving them closer to the left-hand side. They're not, this is not righteous what they're doing. So this is the reason why you can't follow, you can't be of the world, because they're the congregation of the dead. This is the living, this truth. And and the disciples, I'm not gonna lie, for following Yahweh, they were very strong for doing that. So I hope I made the lesson edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praises, honor to Adonai Yahweh, Bashem Shamalak Yahweh Shah, Bashem Kakadash, the honors of the apostle and elders, great millstone, peace, I teach, hope for elect. Yahweh Bashem Shah Shalak Riyam, Adawami, Shalom.